There comes a moment, often quiet, easily missed, when the soul begins to whisper beneath the noise. It might arrive in the form of dissatisfaction with your daily life, or a sudden restlessness that cannot be reasoned away. You may feel for the first time in years that something inside you is moving, flickering. There comes a moment, often unnoticed by the external world, when something within you begins to stir, a flicker, like the first trembling flame on a cold, dark night. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply exists, quietly, insistent. You feel it as a restlessness you cannot explain, a sense that the life you've built, no matter how safe or successful, no longer fits the contours of your soul. It is as if your inner world has shifted while the outer remains unchanged. You look around and feel the strange sensation of being misaligned with your own life. This flicker within may begin as a subtle dissatisfaction, a whisper that asks, "Is this all?" And yet it is not the voice of depression or complaint. It is the voice of potential awakening. Something in you, perhaps long dormant, is beginning to rise, stretching its limbs like a sleeping giant disturbed by the light. You feel drawn to questions you once avoided. You begin to crave silence, not to escape, but to hear. You feel a pull toward something unnamed but deeply familiar, like a half-forgotten melody that once meant everything to you. In this flicker lies the first sign that your inner fire is awakening. It is not loud because it does not need to be. It carries the authority of truth. The soul does not use force. It invites, it draws you inward. And though nothing may appear different on the surface, inside everything has already begun to change. You begin to feel alive in new ways. Certain conversations ignite you. Certain places call to you. And certain actions suddenly feel unbearably false. You may not have the language for it yet, but you know, something is shifting. You are being summoned. This flicker is not a mistake. It is not an inconvenience or a distraction from your responsibilities. It is the ignition of purpose. Like the first spark that precedes a roaring fire, it demands tending. It asks you to pay attention, to nurture it with honesty and curiosity. For the flame that will one day light your path always begins with a single flicker, subtle, quiet, but entirely unstoppable once acknowledged. When the inner fire begins to stir, the unconscious does not remain silent. It awakens with it, rising from the depths like a tide bringing long-buried treasures to the surface. Dreams, once random or nonsensical, begin to speak with startling clarity. They become charged with meaning, pulsing with symbols that seem to carry messages from another realm. You wake up shaken or stirred, remembering details that linger longer than they used to. A locked door, a forgotten face, a flame flickering in a distant room. These are not accidents of the mind. They are communications from the soul. The psyche, as I have come to know it, is not a passive observer. It is a living landscape. And when your purpose begins to awaken, it is as though that landscape erupts into color. The dreams come alive. Synchronicities appear, those uncanny alignments of events that seem too precise to be coincidence. You think of an old friend, and they suddenly call. You encounter the same symbol again and again, a phoenix, a spiral, a particular word or animal. These patterns are not random. They are the signs that your deeper self is trying to break through the veil of everyday awareness. I remember walking through the woods once during a time when my own sense of direction had all but vanished. I was questioning everything, my work, my worth, my path. And then, out of nowhere, I saw a red fox. It locked eyes with me, unafraid, then vanished just as quickly. The encounter stayed with me, not because it was dramatic, but because it was charged. Later, I dreamed of the fox again, and then again. I knew I was being called to pay attention. The symbol became a mirror. The fox, elusive and intelligent, reflected what I was becoming. These signs and dreams are not just poetry or decoration. They are tools of awakening. The unconscious begins to rise when the conscious self is ready to listen. Your soul knows your path long before your mind can comprehend it, and it speaks in the language of images, archetypes, and emotional resonance. A dream of drowning may point to the buried emotions you must finally feel. A recurring image of fire may reflect the transformation already beginning inside you. When these signs start to appear, something sacred is unfolding. Your life begins to feel mythic, infused with hidden meaning. You are no longer just living. You are being guided, initiated, remembered. The deeper currents of the self are moving beneath the surface, preparing you to shed the skin of the false self and step into the mystery of who you really are. But you must listen, you must notice, and you must be willing to follow the threads even when they lead you into the unknown. This is how the inner fire speaks, not with commands, but with symbols, not with volume, but with depth. When you begin to dream vividly, when synchronicities become impossible to ignore, know that the soul is calling. Your purpose is not arriving, it is revealing itself. One dream, one sign, one sacred whisper at a time. As the inner fire begins to gather heat, something inside you starts to shift, quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. What once seemed fulfilling begins to feel hollow. You sit in familiar places surrounded by familiar people, and yet a strange sense of unreality begins to cloud the moment. You smile, you nod, you go through the motions, but beneath the surface, a whisper grows, louder. This is not real. Not that the events or people around you are illusions, but the mask you've been wearing, the identity you've carefully constructed to meet expectations, avoid rejection, or chase validation, begins to crack. The artificial self, that outer persona which once felt like armor, now feels like a prison. You begin to notice how much of your daily life is governed by performance, how often you suppress your true thoughts, emotions, and instincts to preserve an image or maintain harmony. The clothes you wear, the roles you play, even the tone of your voice, everything begins to feel like a costume you've outgrown. You may not yet know who you truly are, but you become painfully aware of who you are not. This discontent is not a curse. It is the early tremor of truth. The inner fire does not simply ignite your passion, it exposes what has numbed it. It strips away pretense and posturing. It reveals where you have settled, where you have lied to yourself, and where you have allowed fear to shape your life. The external world may still applaud you for your success, your achievements, your apparent happiness, but deep down you feel the dissonance. You are no longer satisfied with what once passed for purpose. This internal disillusionment can be unsettling. You might question your career, your relationships, your ambitions. You may feel guilty for wanting something more, or ashamed for admitting you feel lost. But let me assure you, this discomfort is a sacred sign. It means the old structures can no longer contain your growing truth. The scaffolding of the false self is falling apart, not to leave you empty, but to make room for something real. It is a frightening thing to let go of what has given you stability, even if that stability is an illusion. But the soul does not care for comfort, it yearns for truth. And when the artificial becomes unbearable, when the rituals of the false self lose their seduction, you are being summoned to begin again, to strip away everything that is not you, and stand, however, uncertain, however raw, in the fire of your own becoming. The world may not understand your dissatisfaction. It may label you ungrateful, confused, dramatic, but you must trust the wisdom of your discontent. It is not a failure. It is not regression. It is the beginning of freedom. When the outer world begins to lose its color, when the familiar becomes foreign, when the script no longer fits the character you are becoming, know that your inner fire is waking, and with it, your true purpose draws nearer. When the veil of the artificial begins to lift and the dissonance between your outer life and inner truth grows too loud to ignore, a quiet magnetic pull begins to emerge from within, a gravitational force drawing you back to what is deeply, unquestionably authentic. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic proclamations, rather, it speaks with the still insistent voice of longing, a longing not for novelty, but for essence. You begin to feel the ache of the soul's memory, the remembrance of who you were before the world told you who you should be. This pull toward the authentic is not merely a desire for honesty in your words or actions. It is a cellular yearning, a deep inner movement that calls you to align every corner of your life with something more real, more sacred, more alive. You begin to crave depth over performance, connection over approval, integrity over comfort. It's as if some long-neglected part of you is finally surfacing, blinking in the light, unwilling to be silenced any longer. You may find yourself revisiting childhood dreams or long-abandoned passions, those instincts that once came so naturally, before they were judged or suppressed. You start noticing what makes you feel truly alive, the way your heart responds to certain people, places, or pursuits, without needing permission or validation. There is a clarity that emerges, not always rational, but intuitively precise. You recognize the difference between the noise of the world and the voice of your own soul. This is not an easy process. The return to authenticity often demands sacrifice. It asks you to shed the false safety of roles and expectations. It requires that you risk being misunderstood, even rejected, by those who knew only the version of you that once conformed. And yet you begin to see that the cost of maintaining the lie is far greater than the fear of being seen. There is a deep honesty that arises during this phase, one that can feel both liberating and terrifying. You may begin to speak more directly, to set boundaries where before there were none, to leave environments that suffocate your spirit. You stop negotiating with your truth. You stop diluting your light to make others comfortable. You begin to walk with a new kind of certainty, not because you know where you're going, but because you know you can no longer stay where you are. This pull is the soul remembering itself. It is the inner fire aligning with the divine blueprint that has always lived inside you. And once it begins, there is no going back. You may still falter, still feel fear, but the momentum is real. The taste of truth has entered your being, and anything less becomes unbearable. You begin to choose wholeness over perfection, authenticity over acceptance. You are no longer content to play a part in someone else's story. The pull toward the authentic is the moment when the fire within you finds its direction. It is not content to simply burn. It now begins to illuminate, to lead, to reshape. It is here that purpose stops being a concept and starts becoming a compass. You are not just waking up. You are remembering who you've always been. As you are drawn deeper into the territory of your true self, something tumultuous begins to brew beneath the surface, an emotional intensity, a rising tide that refuses to be suppressed. You may find yourself feeling everything more acutely, joy and sorrow, rage and tenderness, confusion and clarity, all swirling within you like a storm that cannot be named. This inner turbulence is not a malfunction of your system. It is the shattering of the emotional dam that held back years, perhaps lifetimes of unexpressed truth. The inner fire, now kindled and growing, demands honesty from every layer of your being, and it starts by shaking loose the buried weight of feeling you have long carried in silence. Emotional volatility at this stage is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of initiation. Just as molten lava breaks through the hardened crust of the earth, so too do these waves of feeling break through your conditioned persona. It may feel, at times, like you are unraveling. You cry for reasons you don't fully understand, or you wake up with your chest heavy as if mourning something that hasn't yet been lost. Anger might erupt in moments where you were once passive, not because you are becoming reckless, but because your soul is reclaiming the right to express what was once swallowed. The old self does not go quietly. It resists. It clings to what is known, even if it is suffocating. And so these emotions rise not just as reactions, but as revelations. They reveal where you have abandoned yourself, where you have stayed too long, betrayed your boundaries, or silenced your truth. And while this may feel chaotic, it is sacred chaos, the kind that clears the way for rebirth. The turbulence is the evidence that transformation is already underway. The fire within does not just warm, it purifies. I remember a time in my own awakening when I could no longer hold my carefully composed mask. In conversations, I would suddenly find myself trembling, tears close to the surface, unable to pretend anymore. I thought I was breaking down, but in truth I was breaking open. I was feeling fully for the first time, without numbing, without justifying, without running. And in that rawness, I met parts of myself I had forgotten existed. The innocent dreamer, the suppressed visionary, the wild protector. These parts had waited patiently for the fire to rise. This period is often the most misunderstood by those around you. The world may see your emotional shifts as instability, but they are, in fact, the soul's intelligence at work. Your system is reordering itself, shedding falsehoods at a cellular level. You are not falling apart. You are burning away what is no longer true. And in doing so, you are creating space for clarity, peace, and alignment to take root. Allow the tears. Let the anger speak. Hold the sorrow close. This is the sacred shedding, the burning off of the old identity. And while it may feel like darkness, it is actually the light within you growing so strong that it begins to expose every shadow. The emotional upheaval is not a detour, it is the path. And when you walk through it with presence and compassion, you emerge with a clarity forged in fire. A clarity that does not waver because it is no longer borrowed from the world. It has been born from the depths of your own becoming. As the tempest of emotions begins to settle, a new and more profound awareness takes root within you, a sense of clarity that feels like the first light of dawn breaking over a dark horizon. It is here, in this emerging stillness, that your deepest desires begin to surface, not as fleeting whims or ego-driven ambitions, but as soul-aligned callings that resonate with the very core of your being. These desires do not shout. They whisper with an unwavering certainty, a gentle yet compelling invitation to step into a life that reflects who you truly are. You may begin to notice a shift in what moves you. No longer the pursuit of status, wealth, or external approval, but a hunger for meaning, connection, and contribution. It's as if the inner fire has transmuted your old motivations into something purer, something that burns not for the self alone but for the wider world. You find yourself drawn to activities and causes that stir your heart. Whether it is creating art that speaks to the human condition, healing the wounds of others, teaching what you have learned, or simply living in a way that honors the sacredness of every moment. This emergence of soul-aligned desires can feel both exhilarating and frightening. Exhilarating because you finally sense the direction your life was meant to take, and frightening because it demands a letting go of old attachments, familiar comforts, and the security of the known. The path ahead may not be clear in every detail, but there is a magnetic pull toward something greater than yourself, a sense that your life has a unique purpose waiting to be fulfilled. It is important to recognize that these desires are not the product of social conditioning or superficial trends. They arise from the depths of your being, from the wisdom of the unconscious and the timeless language of the soul. When you honor them, you begin to live in alignment with your authentic nature, and the outer world begins to reflect this alignment in unexpected ways. Opportunities appear, relationships deepen, and a sense of flow replaces the resistance you once felt. I recall a moment in my own journey when this shift became undeniable. After years of searching externally for validation and meaning, I found myself inexplicably drawn to a small community of artists and seekers. What began as curiosity soon became a profound commitment to express and explore the truths I carried within. That commitment was not born of convenience or certainty, but of an inner knowing that this was where my fire was meant to be directed. It was as though the soul itself was guiding me, offering a compass made of longing and hope. These soul-aligned desires are not mere dreams. They are the blueprint of your purpose taking shape. They demand your attention, your courage, and your dedication. To follow them is to enter a sacred partnership with your inner fire, allowing it to lead you toward a life that is rich with meaning, vibrant with authenticity, and generous in its contribution. So when you feel this call stirring within you, listen deeply, nurture these desires, even if they seem fragile or uncertain at first. They are the voice of your truest self awakening, ready to guide you toward a destiny that only you can fulfill. In embracing them, you honor the fire that burns within and open yourself to the extraordinary life that awaits. As your soul-aligned desires take form, you begin to notice a profound shift in how you perceive the world around you. What once seemed chaotic, fragmented, or mundane now reveals itself as interconnected, meaningful, and vibrant with purpose. The inner fire that stirs within you opens a window into a larger reality, one where every event, every encounter, every challenge carries significance beyond the surface. This awakening to a deeper, more expansive consciousness is both humbling and empowering, for it reveals that your life is woven into a vast, mysterious tapestry of existence. You start to sense the invisible threads that connect you to others, to nature, and to the universe itself. Moments of synchronicity, those uncanny coincidences that defy explanation, begin to multiply, as if the cosmos conspires to guide and affirm your path. You meet people who seem to appear just when you need them, receive messages in dreams or signs in the waking world, and experience a growing intuition that nudges you toward choices that align with your true purpose. This expanded awareness also invites you to embrace paradox and complexity. You realize that life is not a series of neat, linear steps, but a dynamic dance of opposites, light and shadow, certainty and doubt, joy and sorrow. You learn to hold these polarities without judgment, understanding that each is essential to the unfolding of your journey. The inner fire illuminates both your gifts and your wounds, showing you that healing and growth are inseparable from the deeper awakening you are undergoing. With this new consciousness, the boundaries between self and other begin to soften. Compassion deepens as you recognize the shared struggles and aspirations that unite all human beings. The call to serve becomes clearer, not as a burden, but as a joyful expression of your connection to the whole. Your purpose is no longer a solitary pursuit, but a thread in the greater fabric of life, inviting you to contribute your unique light to the collective. In my own experience, this stage of expanded awareness was like stepping into a vast cathedral of existence where every stone and stained glass window told a story that was part of my own. I recall moments of awe and wonder, where the ordinary was suffused with sacred meaning. A walk in the forest felt like a pilgrimage, a conversation with a stranger like a revelation. This awakening to interconnectedness opened my heart and mind in ways I could never have anticipated. Yet this expanded awareness also challenges you to remain grounded. The vastness of the universe can be overwhelming, and the invitation is to navigate it with humility and presence. It asks you to cultivate practices that anchor you in the here and now, whether through meditation, creative expression, or acts of kindness that allow the inner fire to burn steadily without consuming you. This deepened consciousness is a profound gift of the awakening process. It is the stage where purpose transforms from an abstract idea into a living reality, experienced through your relationships, your work, and your everyday moments. It calls you to live with intention and reverence, knowing that the fire within you is part of a greater flame that illuminates the path for yourself and others. As this expanded awareness settles into your being, you begin to experience a profound alignment, a harmonious resonance between your inner truth and your outward expression. The inner fire, once a flicker, now burns steadily, illuminating the path ahead with clarity and conviction. This alignment is not a sudden arrival, but a gradual unfolding, a coming together of all the pieces that once felt scattered and disparate. It is as if your soul, after a long journey through shadow and light, is finally finding its home. In this phase, your actions begin to reflect your deepest values and authentic self. The masks you once wore fall away more naturally, replaced by an ease of being that others can sense even if they cannot name it. You no longer chase validation from external sources, for the fire within provides a steady flame of confidence and purpose. Decisions become clearer, not because the future is fully mapped out, but because you trust the inner compass that guides you through uncertainty. This alignment brings with it a profound sense of peace, a peace born not of complacency, but of deep acceptance. You recognize that life's challenges will continue, but you face them with a grounded strength, knowing that you are anchored in your truth. This peace is the fertile soil from which creativity, courage, and resilience grow. It is the space where your purpose can flourish without fear or hesitation, I recall a time in my own journey when this alignment first took shape. After years of inner struggle and searching, there came a moment when I looked around and felt, for the first time, a deep sense of belonging, not just in the world but within myself. The dissonance that had once plagued me faded into a quiet confidence. I was no longer fragmented but whole, not because life was perfect, but because I was fully present and engaged with it. This stage also invites you to live intentionally, to embody your purpose through everyday choices and consistent practice. It means honoring your boundaries, nurturing your passions, and showing up fully, even when the path is uncertain. The inner fire fuels your commitment, reminding you that purpose is not a destination but a continuous unfolding. Yet alignment is not a static state. It requires vigilance and self-compassion, for the world will constantly test your resolve and tempt you to return to old patterns. The flame must be tended with care, through reflection, connection, and self-care, so that it continues to burn brightly. When you nurture this alignment, you create a life that is not only authentic but radiant, a beacon that draws others toward their own awakening. In living this alignment, you become both the fire and the light, a living testament to the power of the inner journey. You inspire not through perfection, but through the courage to be real, to be vulnerable, and to follow the call of your soul with unwavering devotion. This is the profound gift of purpose activated. The fire within becomes a guiding star, illuminating the way for yourself and those who walk alongside you. As your purpose begins to take shape and your inner fire burns with steady intensity, you will notice a powerful transformation in the energy that flows through your life. A sense of flow that transcends effort and resistance. This flow is not simply about things going smoothly, rather, it is a profound alignment between your inner state and outer experience. A dynamic harmony where action and intuition dance together with grace. When you are moving in sync with your true purpose, doors that once seemed closed begin to open, opportunities appear in unexpected ways, and challenges arise with lessons wrapped in their folds rather than insurmountable barriers. This flow feels almost magical, yet it is the natural consequence of the soul stepping fully into its own rhythm. You no longer struggle against the current of life but learn to navigate it with a kind of joyful surrender, trusting that each step, even those into the unknown, is part of a larger unfolding design. In this state, your decisions arise not from fear or obligation but from an inner knowing that is both ancient and immediate. The fire within acts as a beacon, guiding you through uncertainty and illuminating the path with clarity born of experience and intuition. You may find that your relationships deepen and broaden as well. The resonance of your authentic self attracts those who align with your frequency, kindred spirits, mentors, collaborators, and even unexpected allies. These connections are not coincidental but reflections of the energy you project when you are living in flow. The isolation that often accompanies earlier stages of awakening begins to dissolve, replaced by a sense of community and shared purpose. You realize that your journey, while deeply personal, is also woven into the collective tapestry of humanity's evolution. I recall a time in my own life when this flow emerged after a long season of struggle and confusion. Suddenly, what had felt like a series of disconnected events began to weave into a coherent narrative. I encountered people and circumstances that seemed tailor-made for the work I was meant to do. Doors that were once firmly shut opened unexpectedly, revealing new avenues of expression and growth. It was not luck, but the natural unfolding of purpose activated by the steady flame within. Yet flow does not mean complacency. It requires continual attention to your inner state, a willingness to listen deeply and adjust course when necessary. The current may shift, new challenges may arise, and the path may twist and turn in ways you cannot predict. But when you are grounded in your inner fire, you possess the resilience and clarity to navigate these changes without losing your way. This stage of flow is a sacred dance between surrender and action, trust and discernment. It invites you to cultivate presence, to embrace uncertainty, and to celebrate the mysterious ways in which purpose reveals itself. In the harmony of flow, your life becomes a living expression of your deepest truth, a testament to the power of the inner fire that guides you onward. Living in flow is not a destination but a continuous unfolding, a dynamic state where your purpose and your life pulse together as one. It is here that the fire within truly activates your purpose, transforming not only your own existence, but also lighting the way for others who seek their own awakening. With the fire fully kindled and your purpose activated, you come to recognize that your journey is not solely about personal fulfillment. It is a call to contribute, to serve, and to give back in a way that transcends the self. This stage is a sacred turning point, where the energy that has been cultivated within is no longer contained or reserved, but poured outward into the world, igniting others and creating ripples of transformation far beyond your individual life. You begin to see your life as part of a greater whole, a thread woven into the vast fabric of human experience and cosmic order. The fire that burns inside you becomes a beacon, a light that attracts and inspires others to awaken their own inner flames. It is through this act of giving, whether through teaching, healing, creating, or simply living authentically, that your purpose finds its fullest expression. The ego's need for recognition and control diminishes, replaced by a profound humility and joy in being a vessel for something larger than yourself. This outward expression of purpose often requires courage and vulnerability. To share your light means to risk rejection, criticism, and misunderstanding. Yet it is precisely in this risk that your fire is tempered and strengthened. You learn that true power lies not in dominating others, but in empowering them. Not in insisting on your own way, but in listening and responding to the needs of the world with compassion and wisdom. I have witnessed, in my own experience and in the lives of those I have known, how this stage transforms not only the individual, but the community. When one soul steps fully into its purpose and shares its gifts without hesitation, it creates a ripple effect that touches countless lives. The fire within becomes a collective flame, illuminating paths, healing wounds, and awakening dormant potentials in others. This stage is a continual reminder that awakening is not a solitary achievement, but an ongoing dialogue between self and world. It invites you to balance self-care with service, solitude with community, and passion with patience. Your purpose becomes a living practice, evolving as you grow and as the world changes around you. Ultimately, this is the culmination of the inner fire's journey, to burn brightly enough to light the way, not just for yourself but for all who seek their own awakening. It is a sacred trust, a joyous responsibility, and the highest expression of a life lived in alignment with the deepest truths of the soul. As you step into this role, you become a living testament to the power of purpose activated, the fire within transformed into a radiant force for love, healing, and transformation in the world. And so, we arrive at the threshold of understanding, the moment where the journey from the first flicker of the inner fire to its blazing illumination reveals not only who we are, but who we are meant to become. This fire within you is no mere metaphor. It is the sacred spark of your soul's deepest calling, a compass forged in the crucible of experience, emotion, and awakening. It calls you beyond the confines of fear, doubt, and conformity, urging you to step into a life that is fiercely authentic and profoundly meaningful. Remember, this awakening is not a final destination, but an unfolding path, one that invites you to embrace complexity, to welcome uncertainty, and to honor the interplay of shadow and light within yourself and the world. It asks for courage when the way is unclear, for patience when growth feels slow, and for compassion, for yourself and for others who walk their own journeys beside you. Let your inner fire burn as a beacon, not just illuminating your own path, but lighting the way for others. When you nurture that fire, align with your true purpose, and offer your gifts to the world with humility and love, you become a catalyst for transformation far greater than yourself. You become a living testament to the power of awakening, a force of renewal in a world that deeply needs your light. So I urge you, listen to the fire within. Trust its guidance. Feed it with your truth, your passion, and your willingness to be fully seen. In doing so, you will not only awaken your purpose, you will ignite a flame that can never be extinguished. And through that flame, the world will Find a brighter, more compassionate, and more awakened tomorrow.